Thanks, Nick. And first of all, good morning to everybody. Thank you for your time this morning. I know everyone's busy, so really do appreciate you joining us this morning. So my name's Andy Ersley. I head up our manufacturing group at Argon Co here in the UK. We're running a number of these sessions at a global level and intentionally keeping the attendees limited so we can have kind of a more relevant and open conversation, give everyone the opportunity to contribute to that. So I would encourage you as we get into the presentation and beyond that to speak up if you are interested in something that Klaas is saying. If you've got any questions, then please do call those out. I hope you find it interesting. We're going to hear about how Cargill have deployed stable ops across their operations in Europe and how they've been able to drive significant performance improvement and value from that. Once the session's over, we will follow up with more information we will be talking to you post the session to see how you found how interesting and informative it was. Before we get into the introductions, though, just a very quick word about Argon. I'm not going to bore you. Don't worry about that in trying to sell anything here. Just to give you a little bit of context. So Argon Co, a global management consultancy that's recognized as a kind of leader in operations, strategy and transformation. We've got a range of services. We work with clients across their operations. And today we're going to be focusing in on the manufacturing work that we do. We have a global footprint with local expertise, as you can see there from the map. We're centered here in Europe and have growing operations over in the US, in the Middle East, in Asia, and in Australasia. We work with a range of clients across all market sectors, in manufacturing, in retail, and lots of others besides. You can see from there some of the kinds of clients that we work with. And we're recognized by some of the analysts out there as being one of the better management consultancies, one of the better places to work. They recognize how we are differentiated versus many of the other organizations out there. And that's typically built around how we do things rather than what we do. Enough about Argon. Back to you, Nick. You're on mute, mate.
Thank you very much. The good introduction there from Team Argon. As I said, now we're going to do a quick run around the room just before we hand over to Klaas to get into some of the meat and potatoes of what we're here to talk about today, just to understand a little bit more about your motivations today and what challenges you're trying to solve. So in no order at all, in terms of the way that they appear on my screen, Bogdan, if I could invite you to just give us a very, very brief, very limited on time, 20, 30 seconds on what you'd like to get out of today's session.
Thank you. So my company is actually stable for so many years. In terms of growth, we have some ambitions, but the market, I would say, it's flat. So the only way for us to grow is actually to be better at what we are doing. So when I hear about stable operations, it's exactly where we stand. If we don't sell any new products, we should be focusing on improving how we operate and then get some more money out of it. Thank you.
Fantastic. Ben, if I could bring you in.
Hi there. Quick introduction for those that don't know me. My name is Ben Olins. I'm the CEO of a company called Prep World. We are a circa £100 million turnover company, and we produce prepared fruit pots for the UK retail sector. As a business, we have grown. We're effectively a new start 10 years ago, so we've seen huge amounts of growth, probably the opposite situation to Bogdan. And we have the opposite of stable ops. We're seeing a lot of growth, a lot of change, and we produce to order every day. So our manufacturing process is quite complex and subject to a lot of change.
Thank you very much. Richard.
Good morning, everyone. Richard Lloyd, General Manager of Accolade Wines, so the largest wine company in the UK. We've got an independent packaging site we call The Park. And I suppose I've got a bit of history with Nick from when he was with the manufacturer, and Argon have come in and helped us as we've grown our sort of contract packaging in the last couple of years. So it's quite good to be sat in between Argon and Nick's new business. Stable operations, what do I want to get out of today? I thought it was fascinating. I saw the lady who heads up UK Make yesterday or something said just in time is no more. It's now just in case. And I must admit, it makes me cringe a bit. I don't really want to be a manufacturer that's just in case, which sounds a bit sort of defeatist. So, you know, in a volatile world at the moment, I am interested in a different view of how you might look at manufacturing, but I don't think just in case is for me. So I'm looking to find some other options.
Fantastic, thank you very much. Neil.
Yeah, hi, Neil Anderson, Managing Director of Caterpillar, Skin and Grove in the Northeast. Our business is buoyant, very buoyant indeed. Issues, rising costs for utilities, gas, water and electric. Transportation is currently an issue too, not getting enough of it. We do have shortages. The just in case scenario that the guy before just mentioned, you know, we've absolutely ramped up our inventory, you know, opposite to what you would tend to do now in lean manufacturing, but the customer is just wanting more and more product. So we are in uncharted territories and a lot of things, you know, but rising costs being passed on to the customer, but the products keep being ordered it's made no difference to the order situation with 17-18% increases on product. So today, yeah, just want to share what we're doing and understand what other people are doing, and if I can maybe learn something. Thank you.
Thank you. Robert, over to you.
Good morning all, or good afternoon, depends where you are. So my name is Robert and I work as a regional lean manager for ABP UK. I look after sites in north of England, Scotland and Northern Ireland. I'm just outside of beautiful sunny Belfast, believe it or not. It's sunny in Ireland, that's a new one. The company I work for is part of ABP Food Group, and in terms of growth, we are experiencing year-on-year period of growth in terms of volume and acquisition. The reason I'm here today is because I would like to, and it might be a bit of a cheeky reason, I would like to benchmark what we do against what your model is, because our focus currently, because of the growth, is on unlocking our capacity, making sure that we use what we have in a smart way. We reduce the waste, eliminate it ideally, and we take it from there, because obviously that will drive the cost down and gives us a benefit that we can pass on to our customers.
Fantastic. And Roger.
Good morning or good afternoon, guys, depending on which time zone you're in. I am head of operational excellence for the JBS Food Company. And I'm pretty much here to learn, listen, and if I have anything useful to chip in, I will certainly do that. Nicholas, when you asked me the question around, you know, what are the key challenges with implementation of continuous improvement, you'll have gathered that my feedback was very labor related. So, you know, JBS business on a global basis is very, very, very strong, but there are significant regional challenges around labor availability, and then when it becomes available, the quality of that staff, and you know, how we keep that staff too. So in certain parts, stable operations is a challenge because the people aren't there to put in place to do it.
Fantastic. And we have also a couple of other individuals from Team Argon that I'd just like to just introduce quickly. Charlotte, if I could throw over to you.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Charlotte, a consultant at Argon Co. Quite new to the world of stable ops. I'm here to learn a bit more today. I'm also helping with a stable ops proposal for a new client. So I'll be interested to know how we can help them.
And Crispin?
Morning, everyone. So, Crispin, I'm a partner at Argon. I've got a number of stable ops projects underway, and I'm fascinated to know how this methodology sits against existing lean programs and existing programs that no doubt all of you have got in place.
Fantastic. Derek?
Morning. I am relatively new to Argon Co, but I've been 20 years in food and beverage, and I'm also keen to understand the stable ops methodology in more detail, and predominantly been around the food and drink sector.
And finally, just to Mark.
Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. I'm part of the manufacturing capability within Argon, and generally head up stable ops type of programs. So happy to help and answer any questions in terms of deployment and how the methodology works in detail.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Well, without any, we're going to steam straight on and get straight into it. So if I could hand over to Klaas for some more insight into the realities of stable ops.
Yeah. Thanks, Nicholas. Maybe to introduce myself very shortly, I'm Klaas Kuipers. I am working for Cargill in the cocoa and chocolate business now already for 10 years. And I have been at the beginning of putting stable operations in one of our facilities in Zaandam. So already 10 years familiar with stable operations and deployed it in many factories. So I think I have a reasonably nice story to tell how stable ops works within Cargill, how we implement it and how we sustain it. So I think we can head over to the presentation, Nicholas. Good. You can immediately go to the next slide, Nicholas. I think before we go into stable ops in Cargill Cocoa and Chocolate, maybe it's good to give some background, which shows our way of thinking in production excellence. To stay competitive, we must improve our productivity while accelerating our growth and productivity gains. Therefore, we added the competitive plants element into our strategy for plant ops next to safety, food safety, customer focus, and people. This slide shows the world of plant operations. It is the result of the work that has been done around our vision, our mission, strategy, organizational structure over the past few years to enable competitive plants or manufacturing excellence within Cargill. An integrated and centrally driven system of manufacturing excellence is needed to stay competitive and to support continuous accelerating growth. Basically, also what I heard you saying in the introduction, a lot of candidates here. Capture industry-leading practices that are currently used at other companies and make them available to Cargill. These leading practices need to be implemented into our facilities, regardless of the geography, business unit, manufacturing process, or platform. We identified already huge opportunities due to the size of our organization with 1,500 facilities, adding value to the bottom line. An improvement of 5% to 20% is not uncommon when we reach to the next levels of operational maturity. To capture the opportunities, we in Cargill Cocoa and Chocolate have chosen stable ops as the methodology to achieve that value. And that is where we started 10 years ago. And in the meantime, a lot of business units within Cargill have adopted the stable ops philosophy. You can go to the next slide, Nicholas. So how did the implementation of stable ops look like in Cargill, and then especially for cocoa and chocolate? Because every business unit deploys it a little bit different, but this is really especially for how we have done it in cocoa and chocolate. And that is a journey that we embarked on already 10 years ago. In the oncoming slides, I'm taking you through our journey of stable ops, what it brought us, how it is embedded in our culture, and how we still use it today. You can go to the next slide, Nicholas. So I'm going to take you a bit through how we explained stable ops to our organization. It's maybe a little bit lengthy, but bear with me. And if it's too much detail, please let me know, Nicholas. Then I will shorten it. In explaining you can go to the next. Yeah, perfect. You can click another one, Nicholas. Yeah, perfect. In explaining stable operations in our organization and how it will realize value, we started with explaining the current situation, as you can see over here, which is reflected in the graph, which shows the output of a production line. As you can see, the output of the line shows a lot of variation, days with high volume and also days with low volume. Also, we see that a variation has an impact on other parameters around the core process, like product quality, yield, and safety, energy, etc. With stable ops, you can go to the next slide, Nicholas. With stable ops, we had the aim to reduce this variation on our production lines, having bad days being removed and repeat the good days. Reduce variance by solving dents that cause that variation. This will impact the average, which will then lead to an increase of our throughput. The effect of reducing variability is making the plant run smoother, having less outliers or variances. Reducing variances gives us also the side effects of improving. So therefore the overall performance and the competitiveness of the plant will improve. This is not an easy thing, and it takes several months and several cycles to reduce that variance. You can go to the next slide, Nicholas. So to make it a little bit more explicit, and that is also how we explained it in our organization, we used again the example of a production line with a certain output over a period of time, reflected here in this graph, where you can see a lot of variation in days of high and low outputs. To understand the level of variation and to understand how good or bad a line is performing, you need to turn this graph into a probability plot. You can go to the next slide, Nicholas. Yeah, great. This probability plot gives a good view and a good feel how good and stable our process is. By looking at the Q1, which is the line at the 25th percentile, and at the Q3, which is the 75% percentile, then you can calculate the stability factor, which is a good indicator of the stability of our process. Again, this is what we use to show our organization what stable ops is, how it works, and how it can help to gain insights in our process and where to improve. You can go to the next slide. Yes. The most important message that we wanted to bring across in the organization was the fact that with stable operations, we wanted to focus on the bad days and to understand those bad days. Understand the root cause and then eliminate the cause to improve the performance, and not by increasing further the good days as a start. And maybe a small anecdote here. When we started with stable operations in a factory in Wormer in the Netherlands, where we told the plant that record days were not anymore the goal. So not focusing anymore to achieve the highest output for a day. Until that moment, the plant was always celebrating the highest output with a piece of cheese of 2 kilograms per person. And we said, we don't want to do that anymore. We don't want to focus on those record days. We said to our people in the plant that the new goal was to run a stable line. And when we would see for 3 months on a row that the stability of the line was increasing, then we would celebrate that with 2 kilograms of cheese. So really making a line stable. So we wanted to focus on the bad days, the left part of the red graph, and bring that more to the right towards the black line to create that stable process. In reality, that meant that we needed to work on standards. What are the standards? How do we follow up on the standards? And how do we increase our standards? Examples of standards we needed to look at were run rate, changeover times, portfolio management, and maintenance downtimes. With this graph, we were also able to show the potential of a production line by shifting the Q1 on the red graph to the black graph, which helped in the engagement of our people in the journey of stable ops. We can go to the next slide, Nicholas. So to summarize a little bit the goal of stable operations within cocoa and chocolate. So the first step is to eliminate the root causes of the bad days before trying to produce more. So improve the the 75% of the lower output days while maintaining the 25% high output days. The second step that we wanted to make is only after stabilizing, increase the output of the good days, which will then create a new instability and therefore days with lower output. And then moving to the third step, working again at that higher level, eliminate the new bad days, and in other words, really stabilize again, which is a kind of a circle which is repeating and repeating. Next slide, Nicholas. So what is stable operations for Cargill, cocoa and chocolate? And what are the objectives we want to achieve with stable ops? First of all, and I think the most of the important ones, is the productivity improvement. By implementing standards and follow up on the standards to stabilize the line and increase again the standards, which gives sustainable productivity, improvement of the production line, and capturing the slipstream effect to further increase value. The second step, which is also important for us as an objective, is the transparency. By using stable ops, we were able to set clear standards and goals which are clear for everyone, from operator to shift supervisor, from shift supervisor to plant manager, but also for quality, supply chain, and other departments. All the data and standards are clearly and transparent outlined in our visual management tools and are accessible for everyone. As what we say, we have nothing to hide. With stable ops, we have implemented standards which are linked to data, which can be used as the basis of the discussion. Data, numbers are for everybody the same, and therefore we can talk one language. Instead of having discussions based on the blue eyes of an operator or on the emotions of an operator, and also on emotions where a person shouts the loudest, he is getting the most attention. Those kind of discussions we don't have anymore. We really look to the numbers, let the numbers talk. And then the last part, which is really important for us as a objective, is change the DNA. It's all about getting a continuous improvement mindset in the plant on all levels, with the idea that we want to improve our way of working every day. Good. Nicholas, just pass on to the next. Yeah, maybe it's good to spend some time on what we achieved with stable operations, because in the beginning I heard a lot of you say what are the benefits, what realized. I heard things about saving money, more output, energy cost, etc. So what I'm going to show you here is more what we achieved in stable ops. This is the one in the cocoa plant in Wormer, which is a plant that is pressing cocoa liquor into cocoa butter and powder. And what we have done over there is implementing stable operations as one of the first sites. So I have implemented stable ops in this factory. And we did it because we were coming out of a very big improvement of an expansion project. With that expansion project, the aim was that we would produce 330 metric tons. In the beginning of that project, after the commissioning, that was not really coming out of that factory. We stayed at 300 and we could not make the next step to 330 metric tons. And that is where we have put stable operations in place. And that is where we could improve towards the 330, but even exceeding that 330 up to 350 metric tons. Now, this result was achieved by using Lean Six Sigma and IDEXs, integrated daily executions, and focus on analyzing structural dents in actual capacity graphs and solve them with Six Sigma, SMET, or other lean tools. Using IDEXs and gap analysis, identifying the problem, solve the problem structurally, and setting targets which are monitored. Then monitor the deviations from the standard and correct them by changing the correcting behavior. So really work with your operators on the line, but also with your production managers. And that is how we improved towards 350 metric tons a day. This stable operations is still in place. They are still working according to stable ops methodology. And what we now see is that the plant is even doing 400 metric tons, really based on data analysis and with some very small investments, but still coming from stable ops, improving your standards, monitoring your standards, and that they even further improve towards that 400 metric ton. Also, a nice example here is also in a cocoa plant, which is in Ivory Coast, where we have improved our liquor output with 17%. And again, here also we use the Lean Six Sigma tools, the IDEXs, but here we focus much more on standards around the run rates. So investigating the run rates for specific recipes, really go into the data, use the probability plot, use the X factors which are according to that, and then find out what are the right settings for the run rates to achieve the highest possible output and to get that to that 25% above the Q3. And that is something that worked very well. And we see that the 17%, and this was a project that was done 6 years ago, is really still achieving at 70%. And we see also that they have made the next steps of even achieving 3 and 4% more. So you can go to the next slide, Nicholas. So also we did a similar project in Zaandam, which is also a cocoa plant net. I'm not going too far into detail because it's exactly the same what we have done in Ivory Coast, but here we have increased our capacity with 18%, also focusing on the standards. The only thing is here that we did some small investments, but again, a nice and a good result out of stable ops. So the last 3 examples, what I showed here, that was really about volumes and increasing those volumes. But it's not only that we are looking at volumes in the factory. We also look at other important KPIs that we can improve. And another one is yield. So we have focused on our cocoa plant in Zaandam, another one, where we said, well, there is a very good output, but we need to see where we can gain our value on a better yield result. And that is where we use stable operations to improve the yield. So we have focused on a lot of data coming out of the factory, putting that through a black belt project, and also using still the stable ops methodology. And that is where we could improve our yield with 2%. It does not seem a lot, 2%, but bear in mind that 2% of yield increase for a cocoa factory means a huge amount of money, which is going up to the millions. But okay, so we have done this. We have our factories on stable ops. So what we have done is that all cocoa sites and almost all chocolate sites, they are now structurally on a stable ops way of working. Yeah, the question is now also, how do we make that sustainable? So if we have implemented it, how do we make it sustainable? And how do we make sure that it will stay? And that is where we can go to the next slide, Nicholas. Yes. So how to make stable ops sustainable in the Cargill organization? And that is where we have put a couple of key factors in place. Stable ops is a implementation done by the local management team with some support of the consultants. It's not that we are asking the consultants to carry the project. No, it really needs to be carried by the local management team. We have also said that stable ops is not a way of managing a plant as a project, and then when the project is done, we do our normal way of working. No, we in Cargill, and especially in cocoa and chocolate, we said stable ops is the way of working. It's a kind of a philosophy, how we want to run our plants. And I think that is one of the basic key elements to make it successful, and not to approach it as a project, but really as a philosophy, how you want to run your plants. What we also did is that in all our reviews that we do, and we do that on the work floor, we do that between shift supervisors and production managers and the plant manager, and eventually the plant manager with me, that we use those monthly reviews, looking at the KPIs, that we look it from a stable ops perspective. So what we do, we show the trends of a production line, but we also show a probability plot of a line, so that we can still see how good our Q1, Q3, and also the stability of a line is improving. And if they are then also doing the right projects to be further improving that result of the line from a stable ops perspective. Also, what we have done is that we really want to create a mindset of continuous improvement based on a stable ops thinking. And that is where we said that the next generation of plant managers, which we call PSIs, they need to be black belt certified. So we make sure that our next generation plant managers, that they have a black belt degree, so that they understand stable ops, so that they understand Lean Six Sigma, and that they can read the probability plots, but that they also can steer and manage on that. Then what is also very important is that we do no capacity investments when potential is not fully utilized or stable. What does that mean? If the performance can be further improved, in other words, when the stability factor is lower than 90%, then no capex will be made available for capacity extension before the stability factor is the 90% has been reached. Then at that moment, when we are at 90% on higher, then we allow to spend capex money on a investment to further improve the line. Then the last part, which I think is also very critical and very important, is recognition for results. So we reward people that do an excellent performance, but also when it is a team that is doing an excellent performance, then we also are putting them forward and recognize that. I think that has shown also in the last 10 years when we put stable ops in place in our factories, that recognition, bringing people forward is hugely helping for the engagement of putting stable ops as a philosophy in our factories. Good. Nicholas, coming to my last slide is that we have seen some benefits, not only for our factories, better output, better yield, having standards in place, and therefore running stable lines, which is giving a very big, great value for the factory, but it also has some benefits for the customers and also for the employees. What we see for our customers is that we are more predictable in delivering our products because we are running a very nice, stable line. We can keep ourselves to the plan. So therefore, we have always the right products in our holding tanks, which we can deliver to our customers. So our customers really see in the last years that they are much more stable delivered instead of in the past that it was fluctuating and that we need to call them and say, yeah, your product is coming 1 day or 2 days later. That is something which occasionally happens now. We don't see that it is as large as it was 5-6 years ago. We are much more and better in a position to deliver on a stable way to our customers, and therefore we are very transparent, but also very predictable, which is something that customers really like, and also that is something they appreciate. Also during the COVID time, that has one of the benefits that we could deliver always our customers in a stable way. Besides delivering stable towards our customer, it has also a very positive effect on a quality performance. We see that our quality of our product is much more stable. It's much more in the average of the specification, which means that there is not a high and a low part in the quality. So the customer is really perceiving a nice, stable quality, which is really good also because we are using natural products in chocolate, but then bringing a nice, stable product is very well appreciated by the customers. Also, we see it from an internal perspective that we have less and less rework to do, and we have less yield losses due to the fact that products are not made the right way and need to go to scrap. So customers from our side really see a benefit of having stable operations deployed in our factories. And then the one for employees in the beginning, when you are putting stable ops in place, and I heard it also in the beginning here that one of the last comments is, we don't have the people. It takes a lot of time to implement stable operations. Yes, indeed, it takes time, it takes dedication, it takes engagement, but there will also be some great benefits for the employees on site. And first of all, I think that's one of the most important one is less firefighting. That is something that we see also in our factories. Instead of that, they go to every burning platform and then put it out and go to the next burning platform. That is something that slowly died away in the last 4 or 5 years after implementing stable ops, because stable ops is all about standards, having standards in place, review those standards, and then put the right actions in place. And therefore, we are much more ahead of events that are much more ahead of events instead of letting those events happen. And that brings a lot of ease and peace into the organization. The other one, I think it's also very important is, and what you hear always quite back is that operators don't know what is expected or what they need to do. With stable ops, we have clear standards, clear expectations, and therefore a transparent way of working where everybody knows what is expected from him or her. And I think that's also a huge benefit. And then I think from a Cargill perspective, because we have safety in a very high, it's for us a value safety, not a KPI, but a value. And I think stable ops has also helped in the safety environment, because we are much more in control of our processes. So therefore we have much more time to overthink critical work and therefore ensure that that work can be done under safe conditions. And then the last thing what I would like to mention is that due to the fact that we are running more stable lines, there is more time available to do trainings and to spend time on developments. So for me to end it and to still leave some time for a discussion and to ask me some questions, I think overall stable ops for Cargill, Coke and Chocolate is increasing the engagement. We are running stable production lines. Yeah, and who doesn't want to have stable running lines that are realizing value for the business? Thanks.
Fantastic, thank you, Klaas. Tons there to unpack and get involved with, and as we said at the top, we're very tight on time, so keen to just go straight on and open up to the floor for questions to Klaas. Is anyone been sitting on their hands, dying to throw something at Klaas? If not, I will go.
I'll go, Nick. I'll give it a go. Klaas, thanks. That was great. I love the don't celebrate record days. It's really funny when you sit there and go, "Ooh, we do that," and your rationale is spot on. We give our guys free breakfast. They get their extra sausages as opposed to cheese. But I think that's that's something that really resonated. That's probably not a wise thing. I think my question is, we grapple a bit with how much time we spend on planned maintenance. So I was interested when you're looking at where, and I know you can only do a certain bit of detail, how do you guys balance decisions around the percentage of the time you actually take your lines down versus achieving a stable output with that sort of volatility?
I turned the question a little bit around. What we have said, and what you see sometimes, that in maintenance there is a scheduled downtime. So you say every week 8 hours the line needs to go down, and we approach it differently. We said, is that really needed? Because we have seen also that in those 8 hours of scheduled downtime, the real work that was done, if you would put a camera on it and see what was done, it was only 4 hours effective. So we said we're stepping away from that and much more look at the data and see where the machines, which equipment are showing a high wear of tear, or that they are causing a lot of downtime, and then focus first on that machines. That is where we started doing the analysis, and then say, well, what do we need to do to keep those machines or equipment reliable? And does that mean an 8 hour shutdown, or it means that a 4 hour, or can be spread it over the week, where we see, well, and then we need to do a changeover of a product, or we see that there is commercial downtime, to put it much more in that bucket. So we really much more used the guidance of a production line, what was really needed, and was that equipment really needed to stop for a inspection every week for 8 hours. Most of the times, and I think it's 60-70%, we found out that was not needed that was not needed. 8 hours in 1 month was more than enough. So it was really about analyzing the performance of your factory and analyzing if the equipment was a predominant issue to having the line shut down, and therefore you could even use a different way of doing maintenance on your machines. So that is how we did it. Instead of making maintenance leading, we said no, we make the production line leading and then see what kind of maintenance is needed.
Interesting. I like the bit, I suppose, like you say, are you focusing your activity time on the machinery that's having the greatest impact on your sort of output?
Yeah. Yeah, instead of doing here, because we were always in the modus that we needed to analyze all machines. So we needed to do a full analyze of the machine, a critical machine, and we did a full analysis, which is taking a huge amount of time. And we said we are stepping away from that, doing that critical analysis on very important machines, and we're not doing that anymore. We are just running, and then we will see what are really the critical machines, and then focus on those critical machines instead of taking the whole 100 machines and focus on all of them, because that is costing a huge amount of time. And after 1 or 2 years, we found out that only 10% of the 100 are really critical machines, which you need to put in a fixed schedule every 8 hours a week or every 8 hours a month, bigger frequency. But that helped us enormously in improving the performance of the line, but still being on a maintenance level, which is good, and running reliable machinery. So yeah.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Klaas.
Thank you. And Bogdan, I know you have something to say as well.
Yes, thank you for the presentation. Interesting. I agree. The starting with the bad days is an interesting choice with exploring. I have a question about, you've mentioned something about integrated daily activities. Did I make my notes correctly? Could you elaborate about this a bit? Thank you.
Yeah, integrate daily execution, and I will try to do my best. I think that Mark and Andy can do a much better job even than I can now. Integrated daily execution, what does that mean? Is that you have a production, and the integrated daily execution is done every morning at 8 o'clock. And what we do, we then look back at the last 24 hours, and then we look at the dent of a production line. So we will see when the line was down and for how many hours or how many minutes. And in that integrated daily execution, we then choose 3 topics. So we look at the 24 hours, we look at the line, we choose 3 topics when the line was down, and we discuss those 3 topics. Sometimes it's an incident, and then we say, okay, then we're not going to focus on it. If it's structural, because we see it already happening for 2 or 3 days, or we see it coming back every 2 or 3 weeks, then we say, hey, here we have a dent, which is structural. That is something where we need to work on. Sometimes we can fix that within 48 hours with a small production team. Sometimes it's a very difficult project, and we need to put a project manager on it, or we make it a green belt or a black belt. So that is what we do in the integrated daily execution. So look at the dents of the line, choose the 3 most important ones, discuss them, do a root cause analysis in that meeting, and set then the right actions. And that is a rigor, and we have explicitly said only 3. And when we see that one of the 3 is not manageable in 48 hours, we escalate it, which we call then an IOX, an integrated weekly execution, because then it needs another team and a bigger team to work on. But we focus only on 3 topics, which we can manage in 48 hours to fix it in a structural way. And that is, in a nutshell, a bit an IDEX.
Thank you. And obviously a lot of detail, but we're going to be looping everyone together. So I'm sure we're going to get into far more detail in the follow-ups to this. Next, I wanted to go to Robert. You had a question for Klaas.
Hi, Klaas. First of all, I want to say a couple of things. So I found it really interesting when you were talking about plant maintenance that you didn't mention frontline operator asset care, which kind of helps. I don't know if it was in purpose or is it something that doesn't apply to your sort of environment. Very, very good presentation, because what I think is very, very important, and it's great to see a very structured and holistic approach to application of Lean Six Sigma because a lot of times we deploy tools, just shooting here and there, and it gives you a localized benefit, but it doesn't spread, and then it dies, and then you do something else, and then people say, "Oh, CI doesn't work." Yeah. So it's brilliant. It's great to see that, you know, well-defined and well-deployed model gives you an actual benefit, and it's very, very good, very, very powerful when you use the data. You can see how your data points are shifting on your capability plots. You can see, you use your capability analysis to show, you know, the variation, etc. Because sometimes we forget that, you know, you cannot improve on a broken system. You know, you cannot plan when variation is part of the system. You forget a lot of things. So it's absolutely great to see it, and seeing things like, you know, problem solving, standardized works, all this thrown into the mix, and there is a purpose behind it. It's great. My question is really about the shift in the mindset, in way of thinking. You know, I'm not sure if it applies to your business because I don't know your business well enough, but what was there a case of making this change from knowledge-based type of individuals running the operations to process and data driving it? So how do you make this change in a business from having business built on people who knows how to run it towards the system that you are building? You know, you require people to be Lean Six Sigma or Six Sigma black belts, understand the data, use the tools and techniques. How do you influence the business in a way that this change actually happens? Is it simply through results, or is there something else?
No, that's a very good question, because this is not very easy. You have operators in your factory that are working there 15, 20, 30 years, and they do everything on Fingerspitzengefühl, as they say in Germany, and because they know and they have certain parameters, and when that happens, you need to do this because that is the experience that I have. And that started, and I think also with the introduction of stable ops in the Wormer facility, we started with very small projects which were also operators could get their head around. So we did not take very big projects which are taking 6 months and were very difficult to understand. And so we did very, very small things like we have 5 packaging lines, and what they did was always on Wednesday morning, they shut down all the 5 packaging lines, did all the cleaning, and then started up the line. And we said, well, that is what we want to change, because we have analyzed the data, we have analyzed the information, and we said, we become much better, stop a line, do the cleaning, start up again, take the next line. And then you have the operators and then saying, yeah, but that is not working. We have done that in the past. We already done it. Yeah, and then you are looking at the information, the data, and also the amount of time that is needed for a clean down and during a full period, versus a one that you do for a single line. But then also show what it brings in a total if you do it one by one, what the gain is. And what we said is that if you have a gain, and in the first 3 months, and we are not going to use that time to produce more. No, we give you back that time, and in that time you can do something. You can do training. You can do a online course, or you even go for an additional cup of coffee, just to prove that it was working. And that and all similar kind of projects we have done to really gain that trust of our people, that data, looking at data, is really helping to improve your facility. Because a lot of operators, they don't believe in data, because they think, yeah, someone who is coming from university, very high degree and everything, and he is going to tell me how to do my job. And that is taking a journey, and that is taking small projects, taking them with them in those projects to make them understand. And then it takes a couple of cycles before they are really into the mindset of stable ops and improvement. And that is how we approached it. And it is very different from if you look in Germany, it's even more difficult. You do need to make more of those cycles. If you go, for instance, to Ivory Coast and to Ghana, that is much easier, and people much easier go along in that story and pick it up. So yeah, it's also geographically, you need to really balance what you want to use and need to use to convince the people.
I'll go back to my question, because I appreciate what you said about shop floor colleagues. In my experience, that's usually not where the challenge is. I'm more interested in management, senior management, people who are further away from the shop floor, because in a lot of businesses, that's where the blockers are. And that's where the experience is, and that's where the knowledge is. So is it same, or is it something that
no. For us, it's the way around. For us, the blockage was much more on a workflow level than in the managerial level. The reason is, and that is what I see, is young people that come from the universities or from high school, they have a certain experience with Lean Six Sigma. They already do all kinds of statistical analysis. If I see the generation coming now out of the university, how quickly they are in Excel, how they do data analysis, using already Lean Six Sigma. So they know the power, they understand what it can bring. So therefore, in the management layer, it was quite easy to do. And the luck that we had, Robert, is that in Wormer at that time, when we did Stable Ops, there was a really burning platform. And there was a very big expansion done. We needed to go to the 330. It was not coming out. It was 300. And we said, we're going to use Stable Ops. And Stable Ops helped us to go beyond that 330, even to the 350. And that was a game changer. That was really showing that Stable Ops had potential to improve a line, to stabilize a line. Yeah, and that was the game changer to convince the organization. And based on that success, it was also that Stable Ops was being deployed over all Cargill, not only in chocolate. Then they saw the potential and they picked it up. And then it was also brought further into the Cargill organization. So yeah, it was really about a successful deployment of Ops within, it's all.
Brilliant. I think we've got time for one more question. If we could get another quick one in just before we go to the closing remarks. I'd like to ask Ben, I understand that you're rolling out a new site at the moment, and you mentioned in your text that continuous improvement is an issue there. It seems like it's a right to hear from Klaas in terms of his experience of that. Can you unpack some of the challenges that you're having?
Klaas, first of all, thank you very much. I thought it was fascinating kind of what you've been doing and hearing kind of some of the practical real world experiences. So thank you very much. Really appreciated it. I suppose the question I had is in my business we kind of deal with a very highly perishable product, and we make to order, and that means that we have huge variability in our kind of order cycles, and also our kind of raw material which we deal with is fruit, and therefore goes through seasons and is variable as well. What's your thoughts of how you take that degree of variability and build it into a kind of Stable Ops type solution?
Yeah, well, that's a very good question. What we have done is Stable Ops in the manufacturing space, really in the production space. And at a certain moment, we saw that we were running very stable lines. But then we saw from a supply chain perspective, and indeed, because chocolate is also make to order, so make the product and then it needs to be shipped out within 48 hours. So it's really like a kind of a milk factory where you need to get it out of the factory, which seems to be similar as your business. So then we saw that we in operations became stable, but then supply chain was still struggling. So what we have done is that we have asked again Argon and say, hey, now we want to adapt stable operations in the supply chain space. And that is what we call stable supply chain, or Stable Ops connected. We call it at a certain moment to make that connection of stable ops production towards supply chain. And that is where we started with the analysis with a manufacturing span and really looking at a order. When a order comes in from a customer, how goes that through your organization from central planning to production planning, how it's being handled in production and when it's being shipped out of the factory. And we made a complete data analysis of that part. And that really helped us to understand much better the whole supply chain process from the moment that the order came in, from the moment that it went to the customer. And based on that, we could really see that it was sometimes our own mistake because we did not have the raw materials in the right position at the right moment because they still needed to come from Holland or from Germany. But sometimes we saw also that the customer itself was the reason because he was shifting and reshifting his order constantly, which then gave problems in our production. So really about that more supply chain part is a separate stable operations project, which was really focused on the supply chain. And that helped us enormously.
Very interesting. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And we're right up against time. It's unfortunate we didn't have longer. I'm sure we could have spent far getting to much more detail. But as I say, we've got lots of follow-ups planned, so the conversation can continue on there. I'm really keen just to tap in the last couple of minutes just to understand what you've taken away from today. And if we were to do another session on this, what you'd like to hear a little bit more about. So I'd like to ask Neil that question, please.
Yeah, first of all, thank you, Klaas. Excellent presentation. Very similar to what we're doing in Caterpillar. You cannot become an ops guy unless you have Six Sigma trained. For another time, I would just like to talk about the shop floor and how you reward the shop floor through the gains that you make in terms of a gain share or a bonus plan, because that's been very successful in Caterpillar in terms of bringing the shop floor as part of the equation. If you like to make it work, it's got to be a reward in there other than a recognition. So, but brilliant. I enjoyed it. I think it will work. What you've got, stable ops. I think Six Sigma is a great tool. It's embedded in Caterpillar and it's brought us many gains on the bottom line. So, very interesting. Thank you.
And thank you. And Roger, if I could just ask you what you'd like to hear more about if we were to run this session again.
Yeah, sure. Apologies. So, Klaas, first of all, thank you. I enjoyed the presentation. I had a personal phone call I needed to take, so I did miss the last five minutes there. I suppose with my operations head on, what I would be interested in understanding a bit more about would be the sequence of the steps that you take to take a very unstable process to the point of being stable, because obviously in the manufacturing world there have to be some pretty big decisions that would need to be made. I understand using the data analysis to begin with, but you know, some of the things about stopping certain products, moving things from one process to another process to reduce the variability. So my interest would be is just the sequence of steps to go through to get moving towards a stable operation.
Thank you very much. If I could ask Richard.
I'd like to comment. I'm just going to build on Neil's. I think the share gain is something fascinating that we're grappling with at the moment and we haven't got. So without adding, I'd love to discuss with this group, like you say, the incentive scheme.
Brilliant. Bogdan, over to you.
As I already thanked for the presentation, it was an interesting one, but it's like a top view. So if we can dig into more details, sequence of steps is a good one, but also how in practice you went from the unstable to stable, what was applied, that would be interesting for me. So we can learn something and try to apply it on a minimal scale somewhere. Thank you.
Thank you. Robert, over to you.
Yeah, thank you for your time today. So I think if there is an opportunity to do so in the future, I'll go back to my original reason I'm here, which is kind of benchmarking and validation when it comes to what we do. So yeah, the more detail, the better. That's the main reason. I'm not saying that's the only reason, but obviously that's what I would like to see eventually. Thank you.
Fantastic. And finally, Ben.
Yeah, thank you. I've already thanked Klaas. I thought it was excellent, and thank you for his response before. I think I haven't got a huge amount to add. I just kind of follow up on points made already. I think by Bogdan and Roger, it would be fascinating to understand practical real life processes and examples of how you take a operation from a lack of stability and kind of put the stable ops into it. So that would be very interesting.
Thank you. And just finally, before I hand over to Team Argon for their final thoughts, just to let you know what will happen next, we'll be looping everyone together in this call, and indeed a few people that couldn't make today's session but are interested to continue the conversation. As I said, there's plenty more that we can go into, and will be plenty of information on there about how we can understand a little bit more about what Argon do and some of the successes Klaas has had. But in the interest of time, I'll hand straight over to Andy for his final thoughts on the session.
Thanks, Nick, and I'm conscious that we've run over time, and I don't want to keep anyone away from their next meetings. Just wanted to say thank you, first of all, to Klaas for a great presentation. I really enjoyed that and much appreciated. Also, thank you to you guys for your time today. It's really very much appreciated. I know everyone's very, very busy. And also thank you for your engagement as well. I think it was some excellent conversation, and I look forward to continue those conversations in the future. With that, I think, guys, thank you for your time. I appreciate it, and have a good rest of the day.